From paying $690 a month to lease a car you'll never own, to investing that money in building $27,000 in real assets instead. These are 10 investments that are keeping you poor. It feels responsible, it feels adult. It feels like something your financially stable uncle would nod at approvingly. Keeping a big cushion of cash in your savings account, just in case. But here's a Swiss twist. They don't do that. While most people believe a thick pile of emergency cash equals safety, the Swiss wealthy treat idle cash like unproductive employees. Tolerated but never trusted with too much responsibility. The emotional pull is strong. Cash is visible. It's tangible. It gives a sense of control. But the truth is, excess cash just silently loses value every year. Inflation doesn't knock. It seeps in. And unless that money is working for you, it's shrinking. Let's look at some cold facts. Average inflation in Switzerland hovers around 2% annually. That may sound mild, but over 10 years, it can erode 20% of your purchasing power. So that tidy 50,000 Swiss francs sitting in your savings, it's effectively losing 1,000 Swiss francs in value every year, even in a high savings account earning 0.5%. Take Roman, a 42-year-old engineer from Lausanne. For years, he kept over 200,000 CHF in a savings account just in case. After a portfolio review, he shifted 150,000 CHF into a mix of Swiss and global. 2 years later, he saw a 9.2% average return. It was like waking up and realizing I'd been sleeping on an engine that wasn't turned on, he said. The wealthy in Switzerland maintain leaner emergency funds, often just 3 to 6 months of expenses, and deploy the rest. They value liquidity, yes, but they value productivity more. Let's do a little math. If you invested 50,000 Swiss francs in a global equity index fund with an average annual return of 7%, you'd have over 98,000 Swiss francs in 10 years, kept in a savings account. You might have 53,000 before tax. Wealthy people know saving too much can quietly become the enemy of wealth. It's not about hoarding, it's about harnessing. Comic cash, if this one made you check your bank app. And speaking of stagnant money, let us move to a place that seems like an asset but leaks well through the walls. Real estate in all the wrong places. Owning real estate sounds like a power move. For many, buying a home is the ultimate milestone of financial success. But in Switzerland, the wealthy are more selective. They know that where you buy is often more important than what you buy. The trap, buying beautiful property in high-tax areas and calling it an asset. Yes, property can be appreciated. Yes, it can generate rental income. But in places with aggressive tax policies, that same asset quietly becomes a liability. Here's why people fall for it. The emotional pull of location. That dreamy lake view, the charming city apartment, or the prestigious zip code. It feels luxurious. It feels smart. It feels like wealth. But Swiss investors know better. They study cantonal tax rates like others study floor plans. A home in Geneva might cost 1.2 million francs, but the wealth and income tax in that canton can consume up to 40% of your yearly earnings. Compare that to cantons like Zug or Schwyz, where the same income is taxed significantly less. Let's take Julian, a marketing executive who bought a stylish condo in Lausanne. The property was modern and well located, but between municipal taxes, wealth tax, and property maintenance fees, he spent over 27,000 francs annually just to own it. 2 years later, he sold at a minimal profit. He admitted it was never really mine. I was renting from the government. So what do the wealthy do differently? They optimize for after-tax performance. They look beyond beauty and prestige. They ask, what is the true cost of holding this property over 10 years? Then they pick the region that gives them maximum financial efficiency, even if it's less glamorous on the surface. If Julien had bought a similar apartment in Zug, his annual tax burden would have been nearly 15,000 francs less. Over a decade, that's 150,000 francs saved money that could have gone into stocks, businesses, or more strategic properties. It's not just what you buy, it's what it costs you to keep it. And if that one stung a little, wait until you realize how your weekends and dinner parties are slowly sabotaging your savings. It starts with one dinner, then a birthday weekend, then a friend's destination wedding, and one by one, your social calendar fills up, and so does your credit card statement. Here's the lie. I'm building relationships. But in Switzerland, the wealthiest people understand a different truth. Real wealth isn't built through constant social spending. It's built through quiet discipline. The emotional bait, FOMO, fear of missing out. You don't want to be the person who says no, so you say yes over and over. 2 meals out, group trips, fancy brunches, and overpriced experiences. It's only money, you think, but that thinking adds up. Let's look at the numbers. A weekend trip might cost $800. A monthly rotation of birthdays, dinners, and drinks could add up to $500 or more. Multiply that over a year, and you're looking at 5 figures gone. For many, that's their entire annual savings potential. Consider Clara, a 29-year-old architect living in Zurich. She made good money, but every month felt tight. After doing a year-long expense audit, she discovered she had spent nearly 18,000 francs on social activities alone, more than she had contributed to her retirement fund. I wasn't living lavishly, she said. I was just saying yes too much. The Swiss wealthy think differently. They don't attend everything, they prioritize. They decline invitations when it doesn't align with their goals. They don't fear missing out. They fear drifting financially. What's the smarter move? Set a yearly social budget, just like any other spending category. Learn to say, thanks for the invite, but I'm saving for something bigger. Your future self will thank you. If Clara had invested just half of what she spent on social obligations into a diversified portfolio, she could have grown that into 40,000 francs over 15 years, enough to put a down payment on an apartment or fund an entire sabbatical. Your social life shouldn't come at the cost of your financial future. The wealthy understand that being selective today gives you freedom tomorrow. Subscribe if you've ever said yes to something you couldn't afford, just to avoid awkwardness. And speaking of expenses hiding behind prestige, let's talk about luxury that doesn't build equity, the lease that keeps you broke in style. It looks sharp, it feels powerful, and on paper, the monthly payment isn't that bad. That's how leasing luxury cars sneaks into your life as a smart choice. But here's the Swiss truth. Leasing isn't ownership. An affordable luxury is often just expensive insecurity. The emotional bait is irresistible. Driving a BMW or an Audi makes you feel like you've arrived. The leasing deal seems clever. No maintenance worries. Manageable payments, a shiny new car every few years. But here's the catch. You're paying monthly for an asset that drops in value while you never actually own a thing. In Switzerland, the ultra-wealthy often drive mid-range or even modest cars. Why? Because they're not interested in impressing with a brand badge. They're focused on building net worth, not leasing the illusion of status. Let's meet Daniel, a 35-year-old consultant from Lucerne. After a big promotion, he leased a new Mercedes C-Class for 690 francs per month. Over 3 years, he spent nearly 25,000 francs and still had nothing to show for it at the end. When he wanted out of the lease early, he had to pay a hefty cancellation fee. I thought I was playing it smart, he said, but I was just renting a lifestyle I couldn't sustain. Wealthy Swiss avoid leasing luxury unless there's a strategic business case. They either buy quality used vehicles outright or drive reliable models that require little maintenance and hold their value over time. Think Toyota, Honda, or Volvo. Practical, efficient, and financially sound. Here's a thought experiment. If Daniel had instead invested that 690 francs a month into a global ETF portfolio with a 7% annual return, he would have grown over 27,000 francs in just 3 years and still had a functioning car. The truth is simple. Leasing luxury gives you the illusion of prosperity while quietly draining your future. The rich don't play that game. And if you thought flexing on 4 wheels was the ultimate trap, just wait until you see what happens when your entire income comes from only one direction. It feels stable, predictable, safe. You've got a job, a salary, and a routine. But in Switzerland, the wealthiest individuals view single income the same way they view single weather forecasts, unreliable at best. The comfort of one paycheck is seductive. It comes regularly. You know what to expect. And after years of school or training, landing that full-time job feels like the reward. But there's a quiet risk hiding underneath. Dependency, one boss, one industry, one economic downturn. That's all it takes to flip your entire life upside down. Swiss millionaires almost never rely on one income stream. Even if they have a full-time profession, they tend to diversify with investments, real estate, side businesses, or intellectual property. They spread risk like a portfolio because they know job security is never permanent. Let's talk about Miraul, a pharmaceutical executive from Boston. She earned over 180,000 francs per year. Impressive. Yes, but when her company merged and her role was eliminated, she had zero backup income. It took her 14 months to find another position. In that time, she drained 40% of her savings. I thought I was safe, she said, but I was just exposed. So what do the wealthy do? They build what the Swiss call skull and pillars of income. One from work, another from dividends, maybe rental income, or a small business. They create redundancy, which gives them resilience. Even modest side streams help. Imagine earning just 600 francs a month from a digital product, freelance skill, or rental. That's over 7,000 francs per year, enough to cover a vacation, a year of groceries, or reinvest in more passive streams. Now imagine investing that 7,000 francs annually into an index fund with 7% returns. In 20 years, you'd have over 300,000 francs, all from a small stream that started on the side. Relying on one income source is like standing on one leg in a windstorm. Eventually, you'll wobble. The Swiss rich stand on many. Share this video with someone who says, I'm too busy for a side hustle. And speaking of things that look fine until taxes come knocking, but let's talk about how your investments might be winning gross but losing net thanks to poor tax planning. You made the investment, you watched it grow, you feel smart. But when tax season hits, that profit doesn't feel so profitable anymore. That's because most people focus on gross returns. The Swiss wealthy, they only care about what they actually keep. Here's the trap. Celebrating investment gains without knowing how they're taxed. You might earn 12% on a stock, but if your capital gains, dividend, or rental income get taxed heavily, you're left with far less than expected. Emotionally, it's satisfying to watch numbers rise. The brokerage account balance grows, and it feels like momentum. But if you don't structure your portfolio with tax efficiency in mind, you're giving away thousands without realizing it. In Switzerland, tax planning is part of the investment strategy from day one. Wealthy Swiss individuals structure their assets through efficient vehicles. They use tax-advantaged retirement accounts, stagger sales to reduce taxable gains, and choose funds that distribute income in tax-friendly ways. Let's take Mark, a 47-year-old investor in Bern. He was thrilled when his foreign REITs paid out nearly 20,000 francs in dividends. But when his tax return came, he owed over 6,000 francs on those payouts. Why? He hadn't accounted for double taxation on international holdings. "I thought I was growing wealth," he said. "I was just feeding the system." High net worth Swiss individuals work closely with tax advisors who calculate after-tax returns, not just projected gains. They ask questions like, "How can I defer this income?" Or, "Is this capital gain better realized over 2 years? Let's run the math." Two investors both earn 10,000 francs annually from investments. Financial growth without tax strategy is like sailing with the wind against you. You're moving, sure, but not nearly as fast as you could. And if you think owning a house means you've made it, think again. In Switzerland, tying up all your money in property can quietly keep you from ever becoming truly free. For most people, buying a home is the dream. It's the finish line, the proof that you've made it. But in Switzerland, many wealthy individuals treat home ownership more like a strategy than a symbol. And sometimes, that strategy is to rent. Here's the misunderstanding. Owning property is always better than renting. But that's not universally true, especially when ownership eats up liquidity. A house might feel like an asset, but if it locks up your cash and limits your financial agility, it becomes a weight instead of a win. People crave permanence. Owning feels safe, grown-up, respectable. Friends cheer. Parents nod approvingly. But the truth, many homeowners are house-rich and cash. In Switzerland, the real estate market is unique. Mortgages often require significant down payments, and amortization rules force homeowners to carry long-term debt. That's why wealthy Swiss often avoid buying unless it aligns with their larger financial picture. They don't rush to own, they calculate when it makes sense. Take Sarah, a 38-year-old IT manager in Zurich. She poured her savings into a 1.1 million franc apartment, leaving only 10,000 francs in liquid reserves. 2 years later, her company down. Without cash flow and no easy way to access equity, she was forced to take a personal loan just to cover expenses. "I owned my dream home," she said, "but I had no room to breathe." The wealthy think differently. They buy when it improves financial flexibility, not just status. Some even rent long-term in high-cost zones while buying smaller income properties in better-yielding areas. Had Sarah invested part of her down payment instead of, say, 300,000 francs into a diversified portfolio, she could have generated 21,000 francs annually in returns. That income could have covered rent, savings, and then some, all while keeping her nimble. Liquidity is power. Ownership is only freedom if you can afford to hold it comfortably. And if you thought bricks and concrete were risky, wait until someone convinces you to pour your money into a proven system that only works if you recruit 3 friends. They talk fast, they look sharp, they post screenshots of 6-figure days, and they promise you can do it too if you just follow their steps. But the wealthy in Switzerland don't follow hype, they follow data. Here's the illusion. The financial guru who built an empire from nothing is giving you the secrets. But often, the real business isn't in their method. It's in selling you the method. And once you buy in, you're not investing in wealth. You're investing in someone else's brand. Emotionally, it's addictive. These influences speak with authority, energy, and certainty. They make complexity sound simple. You watch one video and feel like you're already halfway to early retirement. But most of their income comes from courses, affiliate links, and paid communities, not from the investments they preach. Wealthy Swiss individuals are skeptical by default. They rarely follow. Instead, they trust vetted strategies, academic research, and licensed professionals. Their motto, "If it sounds too good to be true, it usually is," especially when it fits perfectly in a YouTube thumbnail. Let's talk about Eric, a 31-year-old freelancer from Lausanne. He spent over 5,000 francs on mentorships and trading blueprints from 3 different online influencers. He followed their steps religiously, even quitting his job to trade full-time. Within a year, he had burned through most of his savings. "It was all smoke and mirrors," he said. "I didn't lose money trading. I lost it buying belief." Real wealth builders study what works over decades, not just trends of the month. They focus on compounding, diversification, and tax efficiency, things that rarely go viral, but quietly build fortunes. If Eric had invested that 5,000 francs into a simple low-cost index fund and committed to dollar-cost average, he could have doubled his money in 10 years without needing a guru, Discord group, or motivational playlist. The Swiss secret: quiet analysis beats loud charisma. Every time. And if you think that was risky, wait until you see how some people use debt to fund lifestyle upgrades instead of buying freedom. Debt can be powerful. Used wisely, it multiplies wealth. Used emotionally, it multiplies regret. The wealthy in Switzerland know the difference, and they use debt with surgical precision. Here's the illusion: I can afford it monthly. That logic leads millions into car loans, luxury vacations on credit, and personal loans for it feels smart in the moment. You're leveraging your future earnings, right? But if the debt funds lifestyle instead of income-generating assets, it's not leverage, it's a leash. The emotional pull is massive. You want the comfort, the upgrade, the validation, and the credit system makes it easy. Low interest, flexible terms, instant approvals. But that convenience is designed to keep you paying, not progressing. In Switzerland, wealthy individuals approach debt the same way they approach risk, with intention. They use mortgages to finance appreciating real estate. They use business loans to scale companies. But you'll rarely find them financing a new watch or booking a holiday on borrowed money. That's not wealth building. That's financial cosplay. Take Lucas, a 34-year-old software developer in Lucerne. When remote work became permanent, he took out a 20,000 franc loan to redesign his home office designer desk. Smart lighting, premium coffee bar. I thought it would boost productivity, he said. But when his company restructured 6 months later, Lucas found himself unemployed and stuck with payments that now felt suffocating. If instead he had spent 5,000 francs and invested the remaining 15,000 into a portfolio yielding 6% annually, he would have earned 900 francs per year passively, money that could have actually bought him time and options. Debt isn't the enemy. Misused debt is. The wealthy use it to buy assets that generate returns, not comforts that fade. Always ask, will this debt put money in my pocket, or take it out every month? That one question can change your entire financial trajectory. And finally, we've reached the worst offender, a financial move that feels like success. You're earning 6 figures, maybe even multiple 6 figures. You feel successful, validated, ahead of the curve. But here's the Swiss secret: income is not wealth, and mistaking one for the other is how high earners stay broke. The emotional pull is enormous. You work hard, get promoted, and see bigger numbers in your paycheck. So you upgrade your life, a better car, a larger home, fancier vacations. You feel like you're climbing. But your net worth, it's barely moving. The illusion is this: more income means more freedom. But in reality, it often means more spending. Lifestyle inflation eats raises like snacks. The more you earn, the more you feel entitled to spend, and the cycle continues. In Switzerland, the wealthiest individuals often live surprisingly modest lives. They don't scale their lifestyle with every raise. Instead, they expand their assets. They view income as fuel, not a finish line. Take Sandra, a 39-year-old executive in Geneva. She earned over 240,000 francs a year, lived in a luxury apartment, and took 3 international trips a year. But when her financial advisor asked her to list her net worth, she was shocked to find she had less than 20,000 francs in liquid assets. I thought I was wealthy, she said. I was just expensive. Wealth is what you keep, not what you earn. Net worth is the scoreboard. Income is just the starting whistle. Here's a simple comparison. Swiss wealth building is quiet. It's slow, it's strategic, and it doesn't care about your salary, only your surplus. The next video breaks habits that quietly cost you a fortune.